right, dude, let's do the worst of. And I'm a little torn on this one because according to those, dude, I was already going to do that. Woo. Oh, no, the wipe is Star Wars. I was going to throw a wipe in there. That's Star Wars.
No.
We're going to get the ship flying by in 8 different directions like the intro. We can cue it. So this one was a little tougher for me. I ran it through the aggregators and all our sources. And season 3, episode 1, Spock's Brain. Clever title. Very clever title. Also, was it 1968? So they crammed a lot of Trek into like 2.5 years.
Yes.
Is how this went down. Widely considered, apparently, the worst episode of Star Trek TOS.
I can definitely see why.
I can see why, but again, that's why I asked you the question a couple minutes ago, dude. There's like 80-odd episodes of TOS. Yeah. They're telling me this was the worst, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I think a random sampling, I could find something else that's just as cheesy on a superficial level. But then when you actually watch the episode, you get into some really grating things.
Brain, what is brain?
Like the childlike adults is obnoxious. The Spock not having a brain and being remote controlled like a radio controlled car is kind of fucking dumb. Like
really dumb. Like, and I have my points on that too. I have my points on what makes that extremely dumb.
Do you want to give the synopsis for the episode of Spock's Brain, just kind of like how they get where they're going, and then we'll do what we do?
So the major plot of season 3, episode 1, Spock's Brain, is that the Star Trek is moving along, which they did have checked off in this one. Just want to point that out.
Good, and I have points on him, so please continue.
Yeah. So they're flying, and they're coming up on a starcraft that is of unknown origin that's using ion engines. As they're docking, they're attaching a beaming type technology, bringing someone to their bridge. She has this bracelet. She subdues the whole Enterprise. Bullshit. Goes to Spock, takes his brain, literally brain. They took the physical brain out of his body. They explained it because he's an alien. His body can survive.
Say, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. And
then their whole mission is to retrieve Spock's brain because he has 24 hours to live before everything shuts down.
And that's it, folks. That's the synopsis of the episode.
Yeah,
dude. I read some in kind of researching the worst ofs. I did because the negatives are always funnier than the positives, right?
Yeah.
So I went down the rabbit hole in a couple of comments in a couple of places, and there was actually some useful information for me because I don't know the history behind TOS. I'm not really a BTS guy in finding out you're usually my guy for that. Like, funny thing happened when they made this thing. Apparently, season 3 of TOS was renewed very abruptly. Like they weren't sure they were coming back. It got a very last second renewal, and the budgets had been cut by, I was reading, anywhere up to like 40% episode to episode. They had to reuse a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff was shot quicker than the usual turnaround. There were fewer episodes in season 3, I think by like 10. It was something significant, right? So I'm like, this is the drawback to the serial format. Hypothetically, when you're doing Game of Thrones, you storyboard out 10 episodes or whatever your number is, and your goal is to smash all of them. Everything has to have a purpose. You have to be efficient and economical with your money, with your word counts, with your production time, all of it. When you got 25 to 35 episodes, you can be like, all right, so what are we doing this week? Okay, Kingsley, Spock's gonna get his brain cut out, and then they're gonna have to go to a planet, but the men and the women live separate, and they're like cave people. And like, you're all like, all right, we're good? Everybody in the room's good? And then you just write the fucking script. Because what are you going to do? Like, you have 4 days to do this, and then you got to do it again. I'm like, I can see where this kind of episode shows up. Breaking Bad, The Fly, this is not. Like, it's not a bottle episode designed to make you think or to, like, give you some downtime from a big event that happened the week before or anything like that. This was just kind of like ultra cheese. Ultra.
And see, this is one of the downfalls of having a episodic Monster of the Week type show that doesn't have an overarching story other than they're on a 5-year mission. You don't have that cliffhanger from the last season to pick up the next season in episode 1, because episode 1 needs to be your strongest episode to kick the season off right, to keep your numbers up, because once your numbers start falling, they need it thrown on Friday nights. And once you're on Friday nights, your show's done. The only
Unless
worst.
you're ABC circa 1989 to 1993, when it was ABC Family Night, Friday Night, or whatever it was, and then like Family Matters, Full House, and the other banger show that they had on the day were like 1, 2, or like 7, 8, 9 o'clock. That's the only exception in history to that.
Yeah, the apparently the best night back in the day was Thursday night.
Thursday.
Because everybody's home on Thursday because everyone's
Yep.
either saving up to go out on the weekend or they have to work on Friday and they're looking for an early day off. So Thursday night was your prime time,
100%. For network television. 100%.
Your two worst nights, Fridays first, but if you ever got moved to Saturday, you're getting canceled at the end of the sweeps.
You might not even make it that far depending on how bad you were doing. It's true. The network television is an interesting animal, isn't it?
It was very interesting back in the day. Like how summer was pretty much the test season where they would throw out pilots. To see what would catch and what wouldn't. Hey, question for you. Do you know why it's called a pilot?
I think you've asked me this before, but I'm going to let you explain it to me again because I'm a good host like that.
Because it's the first time it's on air.
There you go. I remembered. I just wanted to set you up for the explanation. So, Spock's brain. Stupid science stuff aside, right? There is some stuff I enjoyed structurally in this episode, even it being the worst of. And again, I'm not sure this would be my worst of. Like I was telling you in the setup for the show that I didn't want to do the Tribbles episode as a best or worst because I'm like, it's not. It looks.
It's too loved and too hated.
Yeah,
it's so polarizing.
It's polarizing, and for me, I'm like, I think I'm on the hate side. I don't like that they appeared and like they used magic Tribble blood to save. Which one of them died in the JJ movies? It was reversed. So Kirk died. I'm like,
Kirk died, not Spock.
Stop. It's fucking. I'm over the Tribbles. Right. Structurally in this episode, I like the part where the stupid science thing happens to Spock, but they use their technology to follow the ion trail of the other much more advanced ship. You forgot to mention that part.
Yep.
Is their ion tech they identify upfront as being wildly advanced and beyond what they can do.
Yeah, because Scotty had a couple of lines about that, like, and it runs on ion, Captain.
And Sulu had a great line too later on where he's like, well, either this planet, none of these planets invented it, or they got lucky with like the greatest design fluke in history. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. But what I like about them, how they proceed, right, is they do logical stuff that like hypothetically like a high functioning military or science vessel would do. They're like, here's clues. There's an ion trail. Let's follow them. Yeah. They get to the end of the trail and they're like, I don't know, man, it's gone. What do we do now? And Kirk's like, all right, there's a system over here. Pull up the schematic. And then, what's his name? Not Sulu, the other one, Chekhov runs him down. He's like, all right, Captain, there's 9 planets. 3 are class M. This one has this tech rating, like 1485 Europe. This one's 2030. This one has none. Primitive life forms scattered everywhere, but there's an odd, regularly occurring energy sequence. And each of the crew guys that are left, Chekhov, Sulu, Kirk, each have an opinion on which one they should go to and why. So they have to reason and take the chance against the ticking clock because they're like, Spock's got like 18 hours left. Like, fucking pick one, let's go. And they have to make these kind of decisions based on like that kind of rational thought. If this was Discovery, there'd have been 8 of them sitting around a desk, all yelling at each other, everybody thinking they get a vote. And it'd have been obnoxious. There was nothing obnoxious about this other than the ham-fisted acting later on when they get where they go. I like the process. This is Trek, not the shootouts, not the self-mutilating Borg shit from Discovery. This is Trek. I want this.
And the only thing that would have made that better is if each of them laid out their case and then the captain chose, like, all right, that's our course of action.
Yeah,
because that's kind of how military type things would set up.
And I think he set them up for that in a kind of way. Like he took his senior crew's opinions on some things. He asked, like he said, Chekhov, what do you think? Sulu, what is this? The only one he didn't ask was Uhura, but she was over there in communications, letting Starfleet know, blah, 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 whatever. I don't know. Probably should have asked her. Would have been good. Also, side note, Nichelle Nichols, smoking hot in 1967. I noticed. Whatever. I'm not afraid to say it. But they did Star Trek stuff, and that's the kind of Trek that carried over into TNG, into DS9. Like, the problem of the week comes up. The smartest people in the room use their fucking brains before they use their guns or before they cry or before they go talk to their therapist, and they try to problem solve up against a challenge. And the challenge isn't always brute force. Like, that's the best part of classic Trek stuff.
Yes.
Now, it's always brute force all the time, or it's Deus Ex Machina for every effing thing that comes up, and they're just like, I don't know. Data showed up or something in like the new shit, not the TNG.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I missed that because I don't think television does that anymore. What do you think of that?
No, I do think that's true. The only time you really saw this is in modern TV, and it's a show that I really do like, is Criminal Minds, where they put their heads together and they kind of work out what's going on.
Trek right here in this episode. Let's talk about why this probably gets the worst of mentions, right? I think it's a few things here, right? They go with the thing that I think Trek gets a lot of flack for. Whenever they try to do the moral dilemma show, in the good ones, they get you to think of things from multiple sides, to take multiple positions, to realize not everybody that doesn't agree with you is a fascist or some kind of Isterphobe. That's the best Trek, is when that doesn't happen, right? But this one here falls into there's one group of people and they do this, there's another group of people and they do that. And it kind of grates on your nerves after a while because you're like, how could that actually be that everybody just falls into category A or B? Yeah. Like there's no mixing at all, right? Stupid science stuff aside, with the removing of the brain, and it's Trek, it's sci-fi, like you gotta make some exceptions.
The putting back in the brain,
and then the putting back in the brain, and then the panic attack that ensues when he tried to do that then stretched into really stupid comedy where Spock's sitting up on the table and engaging in wordplay. That was one of the dumbest endings. I thought that was probably the worst part. But like the nail grating part for me, right, and you see it on my cute little headline there, is they get to this planet that used to be massive, or I guess maybe it wasn't this planet, it's just where the technology ended up, I guess. But like the society there is primitive Stone Age crap, but they're run by the controller. And the controller is a brain that these non-spacefaring people acquire spacefaring technology to use every 10,000 years, harvest a brain, reinstall the controller, and then become adult child idiots.
Yep.
Society-wide. Because their brains have atrophied from non-use per bones. Like he actually says, oh, they don't need to think, so now they're all dumb. They couldn't have built the starship, Jim. It wasn't them. But they used the salon hair dryer curling thing. They stick their head up and it's kind of funny.
The teacher.
One of my notes here is, Kirk's not here to fuck around in this episode. The chick's like, I can't do it, it'll kill me. He grabs by the arms and sticks her under it anyway.
Yeah.
Has to like reset her brain. I'm like, kind of grim, but all right, Kirk's not messing around. His buddy's gonna die in like an hour.
Yeah,
I'd probably do it.
That's one of the things I just say it was better about this one too, because usually Kirk always reverts to his seductional type of persuasion. In this one, he's like, no, we're on a timeline. Spots are gonna die. I'm gonna do what I need to do. Yeah,
he wasn't effing around. There was multiple turns back and forth of who had the upper hand. They get down to the planet and get captured because the women that run the planet all have the bracelets that have the sonic death ray sound on it, and then all the guys overact and fall to the floor. That shit was funny. Like, okay, guys, like Jim, you're overselling it.
With the over green belts that they had on.
Oh my god, dude! You'd have thought that maybe somebody hit McCoy with a rock bottom on one of those, because he's in the background. He just goes down to his knees and jars, and then flops over. I'm like, oh my god, no! It was kind of funny. But there's a lot of back and forths where the crew gets captured, they get uncaptured, they figure out Spock's the controller, so he's kind of helping navigating them through. They get recaptured again, they get the upper hand again. Kirk draws his phaser, can't shoot her in time, and then somehow later in the episode, like, she gets the gun. I'm like, I don't know where she got the gun from. She did.
From when he was knocked out.
I got a good point. I guess she could have done that.
Yeah, plus because they had their communicators.
Yeah, that's right. They did. They were all on the table. And that's what sets up my next point, is that the physical, you get an action scene in this one where they do the same setup from like the good episode where like they can't directly attack one-to-one, even though they had numbers. They had to set up a little distraction. So Kirk turns around and is like, hey guys, we got to figure out a scientific way to get our gear back. And then they instantly launch into sucker punches where they all get thrown around the room versus these two much bigger dudes. But they eventually get the upper hand. And I'm like, they did that same, hey, what's that over there move? And then sucker punch. And then like 10 minutes later in the episode, when the girl has the gun, Kirk throws Scotty a look. Scotty fakes like he's fainting, and then Kirk grabs the gun from her. I'm like, you guys just did this.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, it's kind of funny. I'm tempted to watch more episodes to see if this is just something they do a lot, because I suspect it is.
One of the things I did like about this with the hair salon teacher that gives them all the knowledge of the ancestors is that it is time limited. 3 of what your hours would be. I liked that because that explains why they revert back. Like once they use it, they should just know, but it reverts back. And then they used it again to get the knowledge to put the brain back in, and McCoy did it. But
him on the clock.
But it made it a lot slower. Like it didn't last as long, and it put him through too much pain. And and which plays out great. They're like, we can't do it to him again because I'm not risking the life of my medical officer.
They had a lot of those ethical dilemmas in this one too, because you got to remember before Spock had even put it on the first time, not Spock, before Bones put it on the first time, Spock as the controller was like, I can't let you do that. Like, you can't risk your life for me. Like, Jim, you're gonna risk your medical officer for me. You can't let that happen.
And then Bones talks him into it.
Right. Which is like, that's quintessential Trek. Is that no. Like I'll put it on the line for like the crewmate, for our science officer. We're not just gonna fucking leave him here, you know. And that's after, of course, Kirk makes like the impassioned plea to the leader of the underground section. He's like, that's my friend and he's gonna fucking die. You have to give it back. He does this twice. He does it when they're first captured and gets his ass kicked. And then he does it the second time one-on-one with the leader, where he's like, you have to understand. And then she hits him with what comes to be like Kirk and Spock's kind of mantra in the movies, where she's like, my people need him need the controller more than you need your friend. And you're like, well, that's kind of quintessential Star Trek socialism right there. Like, that's what it is. The needs of the many bullshit. Like, she basically threw that in your face. And you're like, nah, dog, not this time. I'm like,
no.
Okay.
People individually means more than the collective. But the things I think what people don't like about this episode, one, the dialogue is really bad. Because I think when they tried to write the childish adults, it came off really just dumb.
Particularly in the women.
Yeah.
Particularly in the ladies.
And then this episode kind of dragged down. Like me and my wife were talking, and we both said that that episode longer than the other one because it felt longer. Because it kind of dragged down. No, it's the same time. I did check. It's the same time, but it just felt longer. Yeah,
it was TV. It had to be within a minute tops of all the other ones.
And then 3, the way they just try to sting in Spock as robot Spock as they're controlling them.
Dude.
And then why did they use the sound effect of like when he moved, whining noises? Like, did they have to put gears in him?
No gears,
make
bro.
Him move?
They just wanted to make him think he's a robot.
Yeah.
Spock.
So I think that was what really just none of it made sense. And then the premise of it, of them actually stealing the actual brain out of him, not stealing his thoughts. And they
just steal him. Fucking kidnap him.
And just messed him completely up. But I guess the brain could last longer because the Vulcan brain out of the body and be that 10,000 year brain that they need.
At least they tried.
But yeah, the overall story I think was this, is that the loss of knowledge is overall crippling to a society that did make great things. Is the overall arcing story of this, the loss of knowledge.
That was the science fiction nugget in this one for sure. And that's why I said, I think maybe even something like Star Trek, the original series at its worst, is still better than what we get now, because at least you got somebody in a room thinking up wild shit like that for a one-off.
Yeah.
When we get into serial Trek now, what do we get? We get like the same 3 plot lines in all of Trek. We get the Borg are back. We get the Admiral that's on the revenge kick because his family died. Or we get what? Oh, the Romulans are at it again. Like we get like 3 or 4 core stories. Oh, Data's search to be human. Are synthetics really human? Or they get that. I mean, even the Orville did that. But like OG Trek in serial format can do all kinds of crazy shit week to week. I think I'm never going to be convinced that it's the inferior format like ever again. I think that if we cost controlled streaming shows better, we might never get 30 episodes again, because that's a lot of risk on something that could tank, especially since all these things don't have ads built in to kind of reinforce you taking those kind of chances. But if something like, and I hate to do it, if something like the Acolyte can have 270 million, you mean to tell me we couldn't take 270 million and do 15 smaller scale episodes of a Star Trek show? Really? We couldn't make that work?
And do like 44 minutes of each of them to fit. And the reason why they're 44 minutes is because of ad breaks. You had to fit in time for the ad breaks to fit in that hour time slot.
Which is fine, but I mean, again, we could take 275 divided by 12 or 15 and give it to the damn studio that did Godzilla -1 for 16 million. Like, it doesn't need to be American. I don't care. Let whoever has the creative vision to do it, give it up. Because I think we can get back to better Trek. Because if you do a 5-second skim of something like fanfiction.net or simplyscripts.com or whatever else, like, fanfiction gets a bad rap because anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But if you read some of the ones that have the most views or have the highest ratings, it's typically because they're better than everything else on those sites. And you can find some pretty solid fanfic on things like Star Trek or Doctor Who.
And that's
like, there's ideas out there.
And like, it goes into what we were talking about with Andor. When you have someone who actually cares about the IP, they're going to do it better. And the problem is, with a lot of times, they just get the person that they believe would do the best job and not the person who's actually passionate about it and doing a good job. It's like the whole adage of, you rather try to be right than get it right.
100%. And I would double down on that point and be like, I don't even think that they necessarily hire the person they think will do the best job. I think they cast a writer and director that they think fits the role of what they're trying to do message-wise, so to speak, not to get too deep in the weeds on that. But again, there's volumes and volumes and volumes of, stories written by nerdy high school kids even, that just have wild sci-fi concepts that those could absolutely be tapped and put into a serialized format on a show, even if it's not Star Trek. Make a new thing, but do it like we said.
My last point on Star Trek for tonight would be that the TOS, the good thing that it does, no matter if you like the episode or not, it makes you think. It makes you think. Like, it doesn't confirm anyone's thoughts. It doesn't confirm one action is better than the other, like we talked about in the best one, or in this one where they kind of made them work without their controller and learn how to do everything over again.
That's pretty solid ending.
They don't tell you what to think. They give you, as in a class I'm taking right now, they put a pebble in your shoe to make you think a little bit more. And I think that's what made Star Trek so good, because it made you think and look at different ideologies, different think patterns, and different point of views. So that's what I think what made TOS great. And even like you said, the worst of it is better than some of the best that we get today.
Well, that's what I mean, man. Like, if we were to go back and literally scan, like, if we actually took the time out to watch Discovery Season 1, I think it would probably be tough for us to figure out which episode is the worst of the 10 episodes, or however many there are, because it'd be like, no, this is all kind of junk on a craft level and a writing level. I could very easily go back and watch a season of TNG and be like, this episode didn't hit for me at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, because you get 30 shots at it, sooner or later you kind of come to like Data, you like Tasha Yar, you like Worf, you like everybody else, and they're allowed to miss every now and again. But when you have 10, you got to hit all 10, and you can't miss along the way.
Yeah,
I don't know, dude. I don't know if I could call this the worst. I'm not sure. Other people told me.
Yeah, when you're going in, like we said, it was fan picked as the worst.
There's just these aggregates. Yeah.
But when you're going into these episodes, like we talked about Discovery and like how it doesn't hold up, when you're talking about finding the best and the worst, more likely you're finding the cream of the crap than you're finding the cream of the that rise to the top.
Dude, fact, 100% fact. I don't think we shouldn't do ratings on these. I think City at the Edge of Tomorrow or The Edge of Forever holds up as probably as the best. I would say if people are telling me it's the best of 3 seasons and they're in the know, I liked it. It made me think. It was enjoyable. If somebody says Spock's brain is the worst because it's the cheesiest in 3 seasons of Trek, I am loath to think of what could be cheesier. But I'm betting I could find one, because I at the end of the day, I still enjoyed watching it for one pass through and being like, okay, if it didn't hit, it didn't hit. That's my takeaway. If it didn't hit, it didn't hit, because you have other shots to take there. Yeah, go ahead, dude.
Yeah. So a quick thank you for joining us on our first episode of our new series, Classic Sci-Fi Series. We are going to start hammering these out once a week, sending them out on Sunday nights. We have a couple bangers coming up, so I'm looking forward to these. We're going to be filming them, and then we'll be posting them on Sunday, I believe 3 p.m. is what we're going for.
Sunday. We can have them Sunday for 3, and if we split them in half, if we do best and worst, we do Sunday at 3 and then Sunday at 6.
Okay.
So we'll figure it out. But thanks, guys, and King Z can do our readout, because here we go. See you.
All right. Well, see ya.